Hello, I am Jesus Martin-Garcia. I am the CEO of GeNeuro, and I thank you for your interest in our company. I'm going to be presenting you a few slides that go over our activity and hopefully give you a good understanding of who we are and where we're going. Let me share my screen. GeNeuro is a publicly traded company on Euronext Paris. And as we are publicly traded, I have to show you first a disclaimer. We are a company that is really focused on neurodegenerative diseases, and we leverage the biology of human endogenous retroviruses, which are the viral genes that were integrated into human DNA by the viruses that contaminated our ancestors. Our leadership is testified by the amount of partnerships we have in this field, also called our genome, from the NIH and leading US universities to most large European countries and research institutions. Most exciting news from us is that we have right now an ongoing biomarker-based trial that I will cover on PASC, also known as post-COVID, that has recruited 203 patients in a biomarker-based double-blind placebo-controlled trial that will read results in June of next year. But maybe first, I spoke about human endogenous retroviruses. What are human endogenous retroviruses? Well, this is the team that is dedicated to trying to leverage their biology. Myself, Professor David Leppard, and I'm a specialist that used to develop ocrelizumab with Roche and ofatumumab with Novartis, and who is here today with us working on multiple sclerosis and neurodegeneration. Hervé Perron, who was the man who discovered HERVs. Alois Long, our Chief Technology Officer, who developed our antibodies. And we have also an experienced CFO in the name of Miguel Pyro. So what are human endogenous retroviruses? In fact, what happens when a virus replicates into a cell, it leaves a trace in the DNA. If it's a germline cell and the germline is viable, that trace is going to be replicated by every single cell of the new generation. And this is a process that has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, obviously our primate ancestors, but also in humans. And today, the accumulation of those viral genes in our DNA represent 8% of our total DNA. What's also interesting in them is that unlike classical genes, which represent a little more than 2% of our DNA, there's a tremendous difference between human subgroups and individuals within this HERVs, which are located and replicated all over our DNA. Now, if 8% of our DNA was expressing and coding for proteins all the time, we would simply not be alive. So we have very strong mechanisms that stop the encoding of proteins by our own viral genes. But in certain circumstances, and especially when we have viruses from the environment interacting with a cell, the process can lead to a permission of encoding for their cousins within our human DNA. So viruses from the environment can help viruses within our own DNA start producing proteins. And some of these proteins are very pathogenic. And these are the W and K families that GeNeuro works about in neurodegeneration. Now, we really have a very strong leadership in this field, as you can see with all this recent news and this dark genome. I think more and more people are interested. And the reason why more and more people are interested is that the tools for deep sequencing that just don't look at the 2% of the DNA of classical genes, but have a wider look, is really gaining a lot of field. And we see that in publications. We see that in our partnerships, for example, with the NIH. We see that also in our recent partnership with Verily, the ex-Google Health, to work together in the field of COVID, to not only look at the 2% of classical genes, but to look together at the HERV space to make a link between the clinical presentations and our genetic background. So as I was saying, we have 3 programs. We have a program in MS, a program in long COVID, post-COVID, and a program in ALS. And we'll quickly come back and tell you a few words about each of these programs. First of all, in MS, a good question is, why does a small companies still go to MS when there are so many drugs today which are approved for MS? Well, the problem is that despite the fact that we have very good drugs to be able to take care of the patient's inflammation and relapses, even if patients are well treated, there is still a continued buildup of disability, and over 80% of patients will develop what's called progressive forms of the disease, where they will have a strong handicap in their everyday lives. What we have shown in phase 2 studies with over 300 patients is that with temelimab, by neutralizing the WOF protein, we're going to have a strong impact on the key MRI and liquid biomarkers of neurodegeneration. For example, here you have the examples of the reduction of cortical atrophy by about 40% reduction of the atrophy in patients, and also the marker here illustrated is GFAP, which is a marker of sclerosis, where you see that patients which are treated by rituximab alone see have an increase of that biomarker, while whether treated with rituximab and temelimab, you have a decrease in that biomarker of sclerosis. What we're trying to do now is really to change the paradigm. Today, you have 16 monotherapy drugs in MS competing with each other. What we want to come is with a combination approach, where you would have a drug on the one hand that is effective against inflammation and relapses, and on the other hand, to add temelimab, which is really focused on the neurodegeneration part, which is the large unmet medical need in MS. And we have several discussions with potential pharma partners ongoing in this field. Interestingly, the same protein WOF that was found in the brain of MS patients was also found by academic research in the blood of patients that were infected by SARS-CoV-2. There was a tremendous amount of research done in the context of the pandemic, and it was discovered that about 20% of patients that were infected by SARS-CoV-2 start express this protein. And from the start, what interested us is the fact that if the expression of WOF is de-repressed in the periphery, you're going to have certainly long-term impact in terms of innate inflammation and neurodegeneration. So from the very beginning, we started discussions with the early long COVID clinics and tested for WOF, and we confirmed at the time that about 1/3 of patients were positive. And with this in hand and the ability to test for WOF and to administer a specific antibody against WOF, we proposed a clinical trial that found the support of the Swiss Federal Office of Public Health, as well as the European Investment Bank. And we started this trial in which we are testing, screening patients for WOF, and if positive, we can include them into a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial where we will see the impact of treatment on measures of cognition and measures of fatigue. This trial was just finalized its recruitment with over 200 patients, and we're very happy to say that we will have the results in June of next year. This is the largest trial today in the area of post-COVID. And post-COVID is a huge problem. It's not going away, as the figures show both in Europe and the United States. And GeNeuro's approach is biomarker-based, which means that if we can show an impact on the clinical condition of the patients, we would be able to define within those millions of patients those which we estimate to be about 1/3 that are eligible and could benefit from a treatment with temelimab, and that could come as early as 2025. Last but not least, we have another precision medicine approach against sporadic ALS. This was mostly done by our NIH colleagues that found that the K-OFF protein, a different protein, K-OFF protein is present in the CSF of sporadic ALS patients, and that this protein is toxic, as published in Annals of Neurology. It's directly killing motor neurons. It's a key effector in the killing of motor neurons, which characterizes ALS. And we have right now completed the development of an antibody, which is now humanized, CHNK301, and we are trying to progress it towards the clinic through partnerships. We are a publicly traded company, I was saying. Our core reference shareholder is Institut Mérieux, which is an over 100 years old French group dedicated to life sciences. And we are based in Switzerland with R&D facilities in Lyon. Again, we are the specialists of HERVs, of this link between the viruses from the environment and disease through our own viral genes. And this is an area where you will find more and more publications, more and more interest, and GeNeuro is at the core of it and will be able to deliver on the novel pathways and novel therapies that we can bring to patients in these indications. Now, if you're interested by GeNeuro and what we do, you will find a lot of explanatory videos on herbs and about the link between herbs and disease on our YouTube channel as well as on X. I thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to interact with you in the future. Thank you.